All right.
All righty. Welcome aboard. We're going to let some people fill in. And I know there's some people that have been waiting for this tonight. I want to say welcome to everybody. Tonight, we are going to really do a deeper dive into youth sports from a parent's perspective. Um, I don't know if people saw or read my post, but I'm going to be actually bringing it up on screen here, and we're going to break it down. Our guest tonight, Tamara Siemon, she's been on before. I refer parents to her, male athletes, female athletes, different sports, some, that are athletics, some that are just high school experiences as a whole. All of the contact information for Tamara, I want parents to know this right out of the gate, will be available in the description. We're going to give you her contact information via social media, her email information, elite mindset. And I want parents that find their way to this video to understand that both Tamara and her husband were Division I athletes. They are now parents of 15 and 17-year-olds. So I think this really allows a comparative to in today's world. Tamara herself is a parent involved in this. So first and foremost, Tamara, thank you so much for taking the time to join me, because I think this is a much needed discussion.
Thank you, Coach. I'm really happy to be here. I stumbled on your post on Twitter, and it just struck such a chord with me that 15 minutes later, as I typed out how I was feeling, I was like, okay, here we go. And it's just one of those topics that can't be discussed enough, right? I think that we as parents need guidelines and support and reminders. And I say that as a parent who's made a lot of mistakes, and I still make mistakes. But I think that we have to start with the end in mind and recognize the absurdity of some of what's being promoted and pushed on our kids these days.
And I think we're going to spend some time on that. And I want to preface everything that we're about to say. I know Tamara feels this way. I'm going to speak for myself, and obviously Tamara can speak for herself. Is we are not in a negative capacity, travel, sport, teams, programs, nothing of that. We're just going to be talking about, in general, the industry as a whole has really created a sense of panic. There's a lot of fear. And I think Tamara can speak from the perspective of having a daughter that's about to become a high school senior, going through the college selection process, having a younger male athlete going through the youth baseball and the high school experience. We're going to cover all of that tonight. If you have questions, this is a live, so you're able to interact. You can ask questions of either one of us. We'll get to those. I have a litany of questions that came forward through the X, formerly Twitter post, and we're going to cover that tonight. Want to let parents all know that whether you're looking, whether it's specifically for mental performance from Tamara or equipment companies, things like that, all of that can be found. Recently renovated the baseball and softball Blue Book app. I encourage parents to download that app. It's free. It's 100% free. It's just like LinkedIn. You create a profile. Actually had a student athlete today from Massachusetts, and a college coach saw a profile on the Blue Book and saw that I had commented. So absolutely download the Blue Book and go there. Now, for those of you, and I'm going to put it up here on the screen, and let's see if I can be tech savvy here. I'm going to do a screen share. Let's see. Uh, there was a post that I put out on Twitter, and it essentially, a parent had reached out to me about an event that was being scheduled for 13-year-old team, and it was a elite team. And the parent asked me about the team wanted their son to be a pitcher only. So I put out a post. I'm going to share that with you now to see. And in the post, essentially, what was the question was, is there really a prospect team at the 8 to 12-year-old? The young man was 12. I apologize. And then Tamara responded, and what really caught my attention is this right here, is why. Because pouring a ton of money into gadgets and lessons before they are old enough to know if they love the sport and want to work hard ends up having a negative effect. And I really was captured by the how. Anxiety, general unhappiness, burnout, and a disconnect from knowing who they are and what they love to do. So, what I wanted to kind of get, Tamara, from your perspective is, at, did this happen in your family and you began to see signs of that? Did this happen to people that you work with and you're seeing signs of that? How did you come to that kind of response from that post?
It is a mixture of glimpses I've seen with my kids, certain times with some of my clients, student athletes, and then, I also like to say, like, I constantly getting a degree in the University of Google or reading books, right? So leaning on experts and their opinions and their research. So it's a conglomeration really of what I've seen in my own house, what I hear from athletes, and then what I read and just know to be true, right? The longer I live, if we are forced to do something before we really know we love it, how can that end up well, especially for children, right? Who are still trying to figure themselves out. How can that be a good thing?
Well, I would love for you to discuss the social anxiety with the teenage students in high school and in middle school in particular. There's an intimidation factor. Sometimes a younger student looks at an older student, there's this kind of, I can't do what that person can do. And then the weight of expectation that they may be feeling, whether it's from a parent, whether it's from a peer, where they're trying, as you alluded to, keeping up with the Joneses. Can you talk a little bit about that and the effect that it might have on the students themselves directly?
So, absolutely. I like to start with, how do we want our kids to feel when they're performing? And although I've played a number of sports and I work with kids in a number of sports, I think about the most stressful of situations. I work with a lot of baseball and softball players. So I think about them in the box, right? And that being kind of, what is our goal there? And then I work backwards from that. They have to have fun. They have to be themselves. They have to trust their skills. And so in order to kind of keep that philosophy that they may have as an 8-year-old, to keep that through the teenage years, they have to love it and they have to want to work harder. They have to understand discipline and failure and all these things that are a part of the game. But if it's being forced, we never give them the chance to figure it out for themselves. Right. And so I don't know if I've answered your question, but I just like,
oh, absolutely.
Preserving that, because if they love it and they want to succeed and they want to figure it out, they will.
Here's a question that came in on that topic, and I want you to kind of add your perspective to this. At what point have youth sports become this all-encompassing, you must end with a varsity athlete / college caliber athlete? When did youth sports leave the world of childhood and suddenly at 8 through 18, the need for being ultra competitive and elite and prospects and all of these words that we use to alienate and separate children from each other? At what point did we lose sight of just having that love and that passion just to be a kid and play and participate and learn some life lessons along the way through sport?
My perspective is that my son, who's 15, so 7 years ago, he was in 8U and that was his first year in travel. And I just remember, I know it has it has evolved and become so much more aggressive even since then. But I feel like that was probably vastly different from the experience, obviously, you had with your boys. But it was just this desire to climb the ladder and like, what's next? Right. And then you kind of get sucked into this like vortex of, oh, well, I'm athletic and my husband's athletic and we love baseball. And so what do we got to do? And then before we know it, we are in it. And my son's showing signs of being able to play well and enjoying it, but I know I was pushing. I know it, you know, it was like the competitor in me. I was like, well, I felt guilty to it. Like mom and dad, we're going to do whatever it takes. And I've had to pull myself back numerous times. And we still have those conversations like, what are we talking about? You know, what are we doing? So just in the 7 years since I've been in that phase, it's gotten, I'm going to say worse. And I'm a huge proponent of sports. Like I wouldn't pay what I pay to keep my kids in travel ball if I were anti-travel ball. I'm not anti-travel ball. I am pro guarding your children with your life and finding someone who embodies the philosophy and the long-term vision that you want for your kid, right? I don't care what his background is or her background is. Like, are they a good person? Are they going to teach my child lessons, right? Are they in it for the long game? So it's easy to lose sight of that.
So as of today, if you can think back, you know, as a parent, what changes have you made and why have you made those changes with regard to, you know, you have a daughter that's active in athletics, you have a son that's active in athletics, they're now into the school, you know, the high school world, your daughter is looking at colleges. What made you kind of become aware of, whoa, got to slow this down and kind of take a deeper perspective?
Exhaustion, mentally and physically and emotionally as a parent, quite honestly. So seeing it through my own lens and then the reinforcement, knowing that virtually anyone who wants to play at a competitive level and competes even through high school, it's just a different, it's just a different playing field now. So I've seen it. I've been exhausted, and my husband Scott and I will often just have like a gut check conversation. Are we crazy? What are we doing? And then we always go back to, we're just very honest with our kids. For example, I think kids need to know how much it costs. You know, like there are some of these teams that you could buy an inexpensive used car for the amount that they're charging. And I'm not saying that you're not getting value, but like, I think we lose sight of how much money it is costing to participate. So that, and then sometimes I'm not there, and I'm not there because I have to prioritize work, or I'm so exhausted that if I'm there, I'm shot for the next 2 days. So showing my kids that I have to maintain some sort of balance and having that conversation.
Can you share like what type of conversations do you have with your daughter as you now round into the college realm of academics, you know, athletics, and now, you know, leaving home and campus? What type of discussions do you have as you leave the youth travel and you start to get into that world as you know it, the ultra competitive world of college athletics?
We have talked long and hard about making sure she loves this sport. Also reinforcing to her, like, I don't pull any punches with my kids. I want them to know it's normal. You're not going to be motivated every day, but your so-called desire to achieve something, your input has to match that, your schedule, your work ethic, your commitment, right? And so I'm there to help, and I'm there to close the gap. I'm also there to say, as we look at colleges, you need to be okay with wherever you go if softball goes away, right? Because softball's not paying the bills. So it's kind of like gut checking with her to make sure that her commitment feels right. and that she's delivering on what she says she wants and helping her to understand what that looks like.
One of the things that I know that a lot of parents are looking for is how are we recognizing as parents the burnout, we're on the cusp of stress, or how do we see that anxiety building with regard to our children? Is there a sign, something we should be looking for, parents should be looking for? And at what age does that begin to enter into the equation?
So I think when going to a game, there's this fear of failure that kind of supersedes the joy of playing with friends and against friends. That is always a bit of a wake-up call, right? If the kid just doesn't want to do it, or if striking out or not achieving a goal leads to temper tantrums, while some of that can be like worked through, if it's consistent and you're looking at your kid and they're not having fun, that's a sign that like we might need to step away for a little bit. We might need to take a season off and kind of just recalibrate and see. So I always feel like our kids, they'll let us know by their mood, by do they go out in the yard and work by themselves? Are you pushing them to do that and they're kicking and screaming, right? Do they clearly need a break? Their moods tell us a lot.
Do you find that younger children tend to want to be left alone and isolated? Is that something that, that age of 12 to say 13 or 14, is that really where you start to see the biggest kind of disconnect with regard to sometimes that grit being left behind?
Yeah, I think that's probably the right age, 13-ish. It's kind of like late middle school is where I see it. Because if they started at age 7 and they're 13 now, just to keep up with the world we live in, they've played a ton, they've traveled a ton, they've had a lot of long nights. And I'm the most competitive person there is. Like, I love sport and what sport offers, but it's easy to over rotate and have it be too much. You also, Coach, have a situation, and I'm guilty of this too, where depending on the sport you play, like if you play baseball, you've got high school baseball or middle school baseball, and then there's an overlap with travel. And so I'm not saying don't do those things, but also you as a family and then your child, can you really go to 5 practices a week and also have games? And like, when is the kid going to do homework and rest? And when are you going to rest as a parent? So it just becomes more is not better. More is not better. So the solve for that is there should be teams out there who understand, hey, we're not starting until the school season is over. And even then, it's still like there's no break for your kid. But if you're overlapping, and then sometimes they're like coming from basketball or another sport, and it's just like, it's not sustainable.
Well, one of the things that I always try to, get parents to understand, if I'm working with a family and we start to have a dialogue, at a younger age, maybe freshman or sophomore year, I try to impress upon them that childhood is a one-shot deal. It's a one-way ride. There's no going back. And, I've said it in a myriad of different ways. Most of what we do as parents with regard to youth sports is we wish time away, meaning I can't wait until they get to middle school. Then I can't wait until they get to high school. And then I can't wait till they go college recruiting and all. And you can't wait to be a part of this. And before you know it, it's high school graduation and your son or daughter is going off to college. But we're spending all of these years wishing, can't wait until 13 you, 14 you, 15 you. And I try to tell parents the windshield for your child is a one-way ride, and everything else will be in their rearview mirror. And can you talk a little bit about the value of childhood, meaning and I don't want to be fairy tales and pixie dust with regard to, all of the things that go with childhood, but in some way we are denying the normalcy of childhood by trying to regiment and what I call scripting all of their free time, meaning, okay, basketball, then baseball, then pick up, then we're going to do the high school or the middle school. And there's not a lot of time for the children to kind of develop that passion, develop that grit, develop the interest. You have to like something before you can love something. Can you talk a little bit about the value of free time and relaxing and sleep? That has to be incorporated into the schedules that we make for children as starting as young as 8 years old.
Yes. I know I've said it before, but more is just not better. There's such an innocence that it like gradually slips away, and you feel it gradually slipping away as they get older, but then it also feels just like that. And there's just this, when they're 8, you still hung the moon and they still want to spend time with you. And I got sucked in. I did. I think we have good kids. I think we've done a good job of raising them, but I know I have over prioritized their sports schedules, especially in the summer, being afraid to remove myself and our family from the playing field, and they're still playing, they still love it, but I felt that tug. And so if someone were to ask me now, I would say there's going to be fall ball. There's going to be the next year. Like, what I would give to have my 8-year-old son want to spend as much time with me now as he did then. And it's
Bingo.
it's so bittersweet. And so, like, I know there are kids out there who they live and breathe it, and it's like all they want to talk about. And I get that, but even for them, it's so important to have balance. Like, go fishing, go to the beach, go to the mountains, do something that has nothing to do with it, because we really need to recharge. I said to my husband the other day, I don't know that this tank that has been emptied by these weekends of being at the softball field, 11 hours here, 10 hours here, plus car time, it's quality time that I'm making with my daughter. But like, I don't think you ever fill that tank up again.
Right. It's so true. My perspective is when my son both my boys, when they went to college and we didn't have that one-on-one time anymore, talking about, car rides home with practices. But one time I had my oldest son said to me one time when he was in college, because I used to tell my boys, do not be in a rush to be a grown-up. It's not all that you think it is. And he, I think, was 23 at the time, wrapping up college. And he said, you know what, Dad, I wish I could go back to being 9 years old and just being just a kid, And I think as adults, we become so fascinated. And I had parents that called me and said that a travel coach, I'm not picking on travel ball, I'm just giving you a for instance, had said that if your son truly has an interest in playing varsity baseball and college athletics, you have to be here all summer. You have to be attending all of our practices, all of our games. And then that led to the fall. And I said to that parent, I said, your son is 12. Nothing he's going to do physically at 12 is going to be pertinent or relevant at 18 through 24. I said, so if your son loves it and wants to go do it, great. But if he's like, Dad, I don't know if I want to do this all summer, that's when you got to kind of see the sign and kind of pull back a little bit. So if you could kind of, and I know you kind of touched on this a little bit, but for parents that are now living it, their children are 8 to say 14 or 15. And you just touched on it about the tank with your daughter and your son. One thing to sit in a car with your 8-year-old who thinks you are a rock star. And then when they're 16 or 17, Dad, can I get a few dollars? I'm going out with the guys and, I'll see you later. And you don't get that time back. You don't get that FaceTime of those hugs. Can you talk a little bit about the 8 through 14 or 15 years? It's that time period that's so precious in the foundation for those children who they become as adults. Can you talk about some of the things you might have done differently looking back now and saying, you know what, maybe all those weekends really weren't as a big deal as we thought they were leading into high school?
So I would, it's kind of bittersweet. Like we were so fortunate that I'll speak on the baseball side.
Yep.
We had a great local coach, and we were with a group of families and boys for, I think, 6 years for the most part, which is very unheard of now, I
Yep.
feel. So it did become family and community, which was really important. But there was definitely burnout, and it wasn't because of the coach. It was just because of what it was. So if I had to do things differently, I think ages like 8 to 11, we probably would have just been a little more guarded with like, hey, we're going to stop baseball and have a hard date. So especially here in Georgia, the summers are shorter because we have more breaks throughout the year. So it's not, we go back to school like the first week of August. So if you're playing into July, like your summer's shot. So I think that we would have had a shorter a stop earlier in the summer. That maybe would have been a change. When he was 12, he did the Cooperstown thing. I wasn't there, but like a road trip with dad, getting to go to different stadiums, highly recommend. They'll never forget it. I mean, that's special, and that's worth it because that's memories. But like 8, 9, 10, 11, I think you need to plan for your family to have some time away from the ball field and like really decompress and do other things.
I want to let parents know, Tamara has a great, I highly, highly recommend if you're parents of student athletes or just students, sometimes they get stressed, sometimes they need people to talk to. If you have a student athlete, I can't speak highly enough. I have had so many parents tell me, thank goodness for Tamara, because when I had my son speak with her, he became a different person, and I'm talking about baseball players and basketball players. So, Tamara, how can you be reached with regard to your email, your website, all of that information for parents that will want to reach out to you?
Thank you. So my website is elitemindsetdevelopment.com. And if you go there, there's a quick, easy, message me option. You'll also find my email there. So I think that's the easiest way is elitemindsetdevelopment.com. And then on Twitter, it's my name. And then Instagram is my business, Elite Mindset Development. So you can message me through any of those platforms and I'll get right back to you.
And I encourage, especially parents of young teenagers that are transitioning through, whether it's bigger fields or more competitive environment, bigger athletes at the high school level, very, very worthwhile having them have a outlet, someone that they can talk to that may not be their coach or their parents, like a neutral party. I get that response all the time when I talk to people that talk with Tamara. I also want to let parents know Tamara's going to be part of, twice a month, we'll be doing these types of topics, going to be part of our membership file, our playlist. I have lots of parents that are finding their way to the membership library, and they didn't realize the access, the audio books. All the audio books are in the membership. They're all the process, the recruiting process, the shift, the Sandlot legacies, all of my courses, everything from pitching, everything from recruiting, everything, how to build the high school athlete, all of that's available. All the college coaches content, going to have professional athletes sharing tips every single week that'll be in the membership section, as well as recruiting. I have a lot of parents that I talk to via direct message and email. It's all part of the membership package. I highly encourage that if you find this type of information with Tamara valuable, we're going to be talking with Eric Cressy and other strength and nutrition coaches. I strongly encourage you. Membership for $20 a month. It's well worth it because you'll get all of the information that you need. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars, especially in today's world with college recruiting. And that's going to be my next topic with Tamara, is this whole new change at the college level, the older athlete. We're going to talk about some of the stress points for the high school athletes going forward after this settlement is implemented in the fall of 2025. But Tamara, I want to say thank you very, very much. I appreciate you taking the time. Looking forward to talking with you again on a regular basis every couple of weeks, and have a great 2 weeks. I know it's college selection time, so I'm sure you're busy with that with your daughter.
Yes. Thank you, Coach. I appreciate the opportunity to connect with you, and I'm here for anyone who needs an ear and a platform to kind of talk through, what is our life today in youth sports. There's still so much good out there. We just need to help each other navigate through it.
I agree wholeheartedly. And again, parents, all of Tamara's contact information will be in the description below, as well as with the podcast. You'll be able to find that in the description of the podcast. Have a great week in baseball. Look forward to talking with you all this Thursday.